Hey, what's up everybody? Jake here and welcome to the hobby. Recently, a bunch of people have been asking me to talk about some cards that have actually gone down in price. And you might think that's pretty hard to find in the current market, but that's not really the case. We actually have a ton of examples of cards that have dropped in price and have never recovered to their all-time peak. And as someone that's been collecting for around 10 years now, I've seen the ups and downs of the hobby. If you're someone that's only been collecting for a year or two, none of these cards might be on your radar, but we actually have a ton of really cool cards that I think would be awesome to have inside of your collection. But even then, they have never recovered from their steep declines. All of these cards have never made it back to their all-time high. So let's talk about that, because these cards have been declining for years. And you would think after like, 4 or 5 years, they'll recover because there's no more copies being opened up. There's no more being printed. They'll only go up. But that's not really the case when it comes to the world of collectibles. So let's talk about that. First card up, we got ourselves, obviously, the Moltres and Zapdos and Articuno Tag Team Trio card, the Sun and Moon promo card. This was inside of the Hidden Fates Elite Trainer box. This was really cool because we really didn't get promo cards inside of our Elite Trainer box back in those days. It is, and still is, the only stained glass card in all of Pokemon history. Such a cool looking card. This is a card in a PSA 10 that I think deserves to be inside of your collection. And as you can see, when it came out, it reached a price of right around $225 for a PSA 10 because it's a really cool card. And I remember that. I was around back in these days and I graded a dozen copies of this card, and I remember auctioning them off on eBay at $1 starting point, and they sold for right around $225. But you can see the price on this card just starts to decline, and it just keeps going. It keeps going down. It reached a bottom of $41 for a PSA 10, which makes total sense. This card in a PSA 10 being $40 makes so much more sense because it's an ETB promo card. It's inside of every single Hidden Fates Elite Trainer box, and there are a ton of those printed, right? So it makes sense for it to be $40, but you can see how quickly that dropped. It wasn't an overnight drop. This card stayed at $225 for what appears to be most of 2021. For pretty much all of 2021, this card was a $200 card all day long. But then it starts declining, and month over month, it just keeps dropping and dropping. It still has never recovered to its all-time high. It stayed at around like a $60 to $70 card. I think just now it's going for right around $100 in a PSA 10. But it's never gone back to $220, not even close. If you bought this card at $220, and many collectors did, because it stayed at that price for 8 months out of the year in 2021, many collectors bought copies of this card at $220. They've never recovered. And that's just one example. It's a promo card, so let's talk about some cards that are inside of sets. Next card up, we got ourselves the Lillie Full Art Trainer card from Ultra Prism. This is the big chase card from Ultra Prism. Super cool card. Some people might say this is like one of the best Full Art Trainer cards ever created. It is a super gorgeous and vibrant looking Full Art Trainer card. Naoki Saito hit it out of the park when he drew this card. Amazing looking card. But you can see, at a certain point in 2023, which wasn't even that long ago, 2023 was a year and a half ago, guys, this card was going for as much as $2,700 in a PSA 10 copy. And in June of 2023, there is no more copies of this card being added to the market. Ultra Prism is heavily out of print by the point of June 2023. No more copies of this card being added. Maybe a copy here or there that's being graded still, but that's it. The market is set. But you can see once it's reached $2,700, in the period of 2 months, from June to August, this card dropped from $2,700 in a PSA 10 copy all the way down to $1,200, and it never recovered. It just stayed at $1,200 all day long. It never ever recovered. It's still going for right around that price today. So here's an example of a card that you might think, oh, well, it's an awesome card. Everyone wants it. It's a great card. If you're a Full Art Trainer card collector, this is one of your holy grails. But you would think this card would only ever go up. But here's an example of it just tanking for whatever reason. And you might think, well, What is the reason? And the reason is collectibles are volatile. That's really it. They're kind of like hot potatoes. If you're holding on to this card and you know that it's declining by $50 every single day that you're holding on to it, you're going to sell it as quickly as possible because that's nuclear, right? It's losing $50 every single day. But if you try to sell it as quickly as you can, and you're not the only one, hundreds of people are trying to sell this card as quickly as they can because it's dropping by $50 every day, then the price will sink so quickly, so quickly. Could something like this happen to the Umbreon VMAX? Could it start tanking by $50 a day? It absolutely could. Don't think that this can't happen because all of these cards are arguably top level chase cards that are super awesome to have inside of your collection. Let's look at another one. We got ourselves the Pikachu VMAX from Vivid Voltage. This card on release was going for right around $1,200 in a PSA 10 copy. People love this card. Vivid Voltage was a very hyped set, sold out for months. And you can see it was graded at $1,200, but it just starts declining after a couple of months. It goes down to $900 a card. Nothing too crazy. $1,200 to $900 seems like a lot, but that's not something that's super surprising, especially for a brand new card that just released from a new set. But you can see it just keeps declining. It keeps declining and declining and declining month after month after month. It never goes up. It never ever goes up. It just keeps going down and down and down. And at this point, like really, like it's going for like $200 in a PSA 10 copy. And it's still right around that price. I think it might have gone up to like $300 in a PSA 10, but it's never recovered from its initial release price. Never ever, not even close. If you bought it even a year after release, you're down a ton of value on this card because it's never recovered. And people like to throw out all kinds of reasons, and their reasons aren't wrong. They'll say stuff like, oh, Vivid Voltage was not a good set. That's why this card dropped in value. And we can say that now. Compared to modern sets, Vivid Voltage is clearly lacking in illustration rares and alt art cards. But we can only say that now. We couldn't say that when Vivid Voltage was released. Vivid Voltage was an S tier set on release. It just so happens that so many other great sets came out after it that it just keeps getting dumped down and down and down in terms of tier of how good of a set it is. And guys, in 5 years time, we're adding 30 new sets to the hobby. Every single year, the Pokemon Company is adding 6 new English or international sets. Every year, we're getting 6 new sets. And I cannot say if those upcoming 6 new sets for this year and then 6 new sets for the next year and the 6 new sets after that are going to be worse than Journey Together or Surging Sparks. Those sets are really solid right now. Journey Together, Surging Sparks, great set. Twilight Masquerade, Paldea Evolve, all of these sets are really solid, but I simply cannot say if they're going to be the best sets forever. You know, in 5 years' time, there could be so many other cool sets that bring those other sets down. Same thing that happened to Vivid Voltage. Let's look at another example. We got ourselves the Charizard from XY Evolution. Everyone loves XY Evolutions. It's a reprint of the original base set, made it a lot more affordable for people to re-experience their nostalgia. And the Charizard from XY Evolutions is the big chase card from XY Evolution. Super cool card. This card in a PSA 10 is super prestigious to have because it's really hard to find. If you open up booster packs of XY Evolutions and you pull this Charizard, it's probably going to be a PSA 8 or 9 right out of the gate. 19 out of 20 times when you pull this card out of your XY Evolutions booster pack, it's going to be a PSA 9 or lower. The 10s are hard grade, which is why you get a scenario like this where the PSA 10s are going for $3,000 and the ungraded copies are going for $60 and the PSA 9s are only going for $175. That's a massive gap between a 10 and a 9 because the 10s are so hard to find. And this is a prestigious card. The only person that would have this in a 10 is an ultra wealthy collector, someone who could truly afford it, because someone that's poor like you and I would probably have an ungraded or 9. I still have a 9 copy of this card, never got a 10, and I probably never will because I can't afford a 10. I can't afford to spend $3,000 on this Charizard card. It just doesn't make sense. But you can see, even for a prestigious card like this Charizard from XY Evolutions, which is still an awesome card to have inside of your collection, it just keeps dropping in value. Dropping and dropping. And here's the crazy thing. XY Evolutions has been out of print for years. XY Evolution's booster packs keep going up in price because there's less and less of them out there. And you would think that this Charizard would be decline proof. Why would it decline in value when there's so many less copies of it being added to the market? There's no one that's really opening up XY Evolution's packs on a daily basis and grading this card, but you can see it just keeps going down and down and down, and it's never recovered. It has never gone up, not even close. It's not even reached $2,000. If you bought this card 2 years ago at $3,000, you're just out $2,000. It never recovered. And if you sold it right now, you're probably getting $1,200 for this card. If you've been holding it for the last 4 years and you bought it at $3,600, yeah, you're just out like 60% of your value. This card has not gone up a dime, even though it's a super cool card and the sealed products of it keeps getting less and less and less. All right, now let's look at a really expensive card. We got ourselves a very prestigious, one of the best holy grail full art trainer card. If you're someone that collects full art trainer card, you know this card. It's the Alola Friends card. Adorable, awesome, one of the best full art trainer cards they've ever printed. This texture pattern on this thing is insane. Like one of the best texture patterns they've ever done for a full art trainer card. And it was expensive pretty much right out of the gate. Right out of the gate, it was going for, you know, $2,000, $3,000 for a PSA 10 copy. Apparently it stayed that way for quite a long time. But you can see in July of 2023, this card was going for $7,000. And I remember talking to other collectors about this card, and I think it went for higher. I think this card went for over $10,000 during July. But it declined. It declined. It just kept declining. If you pick this card up in July for $7,000, you're out a ton of money because it's currently only going for right around like $3,000 in a PSA 10 copy. And that's crazy, right? That shows how quickly the market can shift. This is a card that's never had a copy added to the market. There is no real stock of this card. It just should be a very solid card. And people say, oh, like there's newer stuff that comes out. Didn't this card have a Chinese reprint? But yeah, but there's no more Japanese copies of this card. If you bought this card at $7,000, are you selling it? Apparently so. Lots of people are still selling this card online, and you can see copies of it listed for, I think, right around $3,500 nowadays. So that's how quickly some of these cards can decline. If you bought this card at its peak, you've lost half your value. And this can happen to any card. For example, the Umbreon VMAX. People think it's rock solid at $3,000. Oh, it'll only go up. It has to hold its value because why would anyone sell it? And people will sell it. People will sell it like a hot potato once it starts declining in value. There will come a point in time when the price on the Umbreon VMAX starts declining. And when the market smells blood in the water, they're going to start selling. Because if you're holding an Umbreon VMAX card in your hand and it's dropping by $50 every single day, and we've seen cards drop by values of $50 a day, like this Lillie, right? Climbed up so quickly. It's almost exact same speed of climb as the Umbreon VMAX. Once the card starts declining in price, people will have to offload it very quickly because you're holding something that is losing $50 in value every single day. And that hurts because after a month, you're down $1,000 and you don't know when it's going to bottom out. So you're going to try to sell this as quickly as possible, even if you love the card, because you're going to say, well, I'm just going to buy it back in a month or two for way less, or you would just spend that money to collect other cards. So that's why people sell their cards. You might think people never sell their cards, but that's actually the opposite. Most collectors will happily trade cards very quickly, especially right now in the market where cards are traded hands so rapidly that once a card starts declining in price, it can decline very, very, very quickly in a very short period of time. We're at a period of time where cards' volatility have never been this high. Cards are rising and dropping in prices so quickly, and that's very risky. If I was a collector, which I am, I would not be picking up an Umbreon VMAX at $3,000. And I know there are people that are currently picking up that card at $3,000 because that's what the market price on the card currently is, which is crazy because if you pick up a card like that for $3,000, there's so much risk involved. You're almost hoping that there's a bigger idiot, right? It's the bigger idiot theory, is that you're kind of an idiot for picking it up for $3,000, but you're really hoping that there's someone out there that's an even bigger idiot that's willing to pay $3,500 or $4,000. You just don't want to be left with the holding the bag at the end of the day. But that's not the kind of collector I am. I'm not in the market of speculation or selling or trading cards rapidly. But if you're someone that's trying to collect cards right now, I would not be picking up those super volatile cards at their all-time peak prices. It just doesn't make sense to me. So people have been asking for cards that are like this. These are examples of cards that have declined in value and never really recovered. And these are cards that are out of print, out of stock. People aren't really opening up packs of them, but they just keep declining and declining. So plenty of examples of these types of cards in the market. People think once cards are out of print or out of stock, they can only go up in value, but that's not really the case. People are always chasing the next big thing, and we never know what that might be. So thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you like these kinds of videos or lessons from the past, I'm happy to do more. I'll see you guys next time.